District of Conservation is sponsored by the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, better known as CFACT. To learn more about our sponsor, head over to cfact.org. Thanks for listening to the program. Welcome to District of Conservation. I am your host, Gabriella Hoffman. This podcast offers a sober examination into all things hunting, fishing, shooting sports, energy, environment, and the public policy surrounding it. And this podcast also specializes in original interviews that you won't hear elsewhere. Here's what I have for you today. Aaron, it's good to have you back on the podcast. I'm really excited to do a deep dive into your new project, the Big Game Academy. But first, having been obviously an extra on Yellowstone on Paramount, you know, it's one of my favorite shows, and having seen Kevin Costner and the other actors, I have to get your take now that Mr. Costner has said he is not returning to Yellowstone for the final episodes of season 5. What is your whole view of that? Do you think the show can be complete without him?
You know, having actually, even since Yellowstone, I did act in another movie more recently. And they don't have a name for it yet, actually, but it's an MMA movie. I have seen just how much they rewrite a lot of those different shows and movies. So I think they'll make it work. Will it be as good as it was before? Who knows? You know, time will tell. But I don't know. I think, you know, he really wanted to do his own thing. You know, he wanted to do Horizon, and you know, he's said consistently that he wants to work more than just like once a year. I think that's the big clip that I keep seeing about him. And who knows, maybe that's the case. Maybe that's really true. And, you know, is for his perspective, you know, maybe it's a really good thing as far as how the show actually turns out. Only time will tell. I know he's a big part of that show, and you know, he really made that show in a lot of different ways. So I find it really, really hard that, you know, really, really hard to imagine that it'll be the same without him, you know?
He was a centerpiece, and I think that's what drew a lot of people, especially early adopters like me, to the program. I wonder how Taylor Sheridan envisions killing him off, because that has to take place. He can't just disappear into the sunset or ride into the sunset. I feel like he'll do something and say like he died unforeseen events because he was untouchable. Like he survived his character survived different attacks, nearly dying, etc. So now he has to finally put a kibosh on his character. So we'll see in November, but I was just curious about your thoughts, and pretty cool to hear that you were doing some more acting as well. But obviously for listeners who have heard you on the program before, you and I are friends stemming from our involvement in the Professional Outdoor Media Association. You're very entrepreneurial. You have a couple brands. What's the latest with your brands outside of this other project you're going to have too? So how are your companies doing?
So they're doing pretty well. I started as you know, before your podcast started, we were talking about how I just graduated with a couple degrees and some certificates and stuff like that in the digital media space. So I started a digital media company that's more based around the outdoor industry and advertising and digital media marketing, stuff like that, content creation. And that is going really well, very, very busy. And it's, I think it's a sect of the outdoor industry that's really missing in a lot of ways. So that's going really, really well. And then I am one of the owners of 6 a.m. Outdoors. A lot of people call it VIAM, because it's VIAM, but people don't read Roman numerals anymore.
That's sad, yeah.
Yeah. So that's an outdoor gear company. We have lightweight backpacking and hunting gear. And that is going very, very well as well. We have brought on new products. We're starting to expand a lot more than just the West. So that is going really, really well. And I've been able to kind of incestually integrate both of my different brands, as well as, the Primitive Republic podcast and Wrangled Media and 6 a.m. and, all of these different companies together to kind of help build each other. So that's been fun as well, figuring out ways that it can all kind of stand on each other.
It keeps you busy, certainly. And the outdoor industry, I don't think people recognize, it does inspire a lot of entrepreneurship. A lot of entrepreneurship can be emanating from it. I feel like because you're independent, you want to chart your own course, get one with nature. I feel like those qualities are very representative of business. And I feel like most successful business people and politicians or anyone in a high level profession, I think the most successful ones are outdoorsmen. So there is a lot of synergy behind kind of the entrepreneurial spirit and spending time outdoors because it challenges you, it paces you, and you have to be creative if you want to survive in the wild, of course, much like you have to survive in entrepreneurship. So I love the overlap. This is so fun. And something kind of entrepreneurial, as I alluded to earlier, is this Big Game Academy concept that you and some friends are formulating this year. When you told me the dates, I was so disappointed that I can't come because it's just at a busy time for me in August when I have all this travel and then I have to anticipate other travel. So next year, I promised you that I'll come. But for those who are listening and curious, perhaps at the time we release this, there may not be some available spots. Maybe there will be some availability going forward as we put this out there. But what is the Big Game Academy? What do you hope to accomplish from it?
So, excuse me, the Big Game Academy is really, so it was basically formed by myself and another friend of mine that's a guide, and then another one of my friend's friends that is a long distance shooter. And it started really spitballing different ideas and concepts and stuff like that, where, we get into all these debates, how far is too far for an ethical shot? And, that was one of the big ones, right? And then we started thinking about it like, well, kind of like archery. When you go to these big TAC events or Northwest Mountain Challenge, Mountain Archery Fest, you go to these different events and you're taking sometimes 100-yard shots at a target, right? It's not meant to make you want to take those long of shots. What it does is it actually stabilizes your muscles, where you're actually better able and more comfortable taking those closer up shots with confidence. And so we thought maybe the same thing could be true about integrating the long range shooting into a platform where we could teach different people about different aspects of the outdoors. Because if you understand your weaponry, you understand your equipment, and you're comfortable with it, you're much more likely to make a good, ethical, clean shot. So we started this idea that, we would just do the long range shooting. And then we were like, you know what? It really wouldn't be that big of a deal because there's so many different things, just on the Western hunt aspect that are kind of lost arts, like say land navigation. Land navigation is a big one for me, because I used to do search and rescue and stuff like that. And a lot of people really get lost. So they've forgotten how to use a map and a compass and integrating it with GPS and stuff like that. So we said, well, why don't we integrate that into it? And then we were like, well, what if we started talking about maybe different companies that might be able to be involved in it? And there were call companies. And we said, well, why don't we do an elk calling portion of it? And then, well, animal breakdown is a good thing, animal processing. So teaching people how to have better, clean, taken care of meat out in the field would make them more likely to hunt because they're having better quality meat and you don't get that gamey, nastier flavor that a lot of people don't like, right? Um, so we were like, well, why don't we integrate that into it? And then, one thing led to another, to another, to another, and it ended up being 4 days. And we were like, you know what? We can do that. Let's do 4 days of just overall outdoor training. So you'll get 2 days of long range shooting instruction with a certified instructor. You will get 1 day of land navigation, where we'll teach a ton of different aspects of land navigation using a map and compass and integrating it with your GPS unit, whether that's your phone or an actual GPS unit. And then you'll get 1 day of elk calling, animal behavior, hunting and ethics, bushcraft, a little bit of survival type stuff, field first aid, just a ton of different things on that last day that we're going to integrate into it. And then the idea is that we'll be able to expand this the next year. So this year is mainly based on, the first 2 days being shooting a rifle, but next year, what we're wanting to do is maybe 2 days also of shooting a bow. So it'll be 6 days altogether. And if you're a rifle hunter and you don't want to do the bow course, you'll have the option to do that. If you don't want to do the rifle course, you'll have the option to do that. So that's really the idea behind it, is just educating people that even if you're more of a novice or even more of an advanced outdoors person, we guarantee that there's things that you are going to learn there, because some of the people that we have there, just that are coming to be guests, that have guest slots in this, are so freaking knowledgeable that there's no reason that you should go unanswered with a question.
That's exciting. And where is the inaugural academy taking place this year?
So it's going to be at the Kia Grande Ranch outside of Pagosa Springs, Colorado, and it's going to be August 1st through the 4th of this year. And so here's the other thing too. Keep in mind, the entire 4 days is only going to cost somebody $500. And anybody who has gotten any long range shooting instruction, that is just the shooting instruction alone is a lot of times thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So you are getting a heck of a deal with this entire thing. So
it does sound like a good package deal. And how many signups as of our recording do you guys have? And how many can you accommodate?
I don't know how many we have right now. I'd have to actually look. I'm not the one that's handling the signups, but we have 50 slots total available. So whatever we have signed up as of right now versus, 50 slots available. So there's still plenty of room for people. I do know that. So
that's exciting. And do you hope to, so you'll build off of success in anticipation, you guys will, and I think you will. You know, a lot of people will probably find the experience invaluable. Like I said, I wish I could attend. I would have loved to have covered it and been there to see what it is and partake in it myself. But I promised you, hopefully next year, my schedule shouldn't be so crazy. But you said you hope to expand it. Do you hope to create like an Eastern variety? Because I know you have primary focus on the West, but I bet you people in the East would love camps like this too.
Yeah. So I've been talking to, and I don't want to mention any specific companies right now, just, for the future type stuff. But I have been talking to a few different companies that, one of which has camps, like youth camps and stuff like that, that they do having to do with the outdoors and hunting and stuff like that. and they're very interested in getting involved. And they work through Pennsylvania, North Carolina, all that kind of stuff. So there's a good opportunity to have something like that. Assuming time will allow, we would definitely look to have something on the East Coast. And something I might mention too is with the elk calling. So Kia Grande is a live elk farm. So when you're learning how to call elk, you're actually calling real elk. So you'll be able to get the reactions of people. And at night, especially in August, well, all year round, elk call each other. They talk all year round, whether people choose to agree with that or not. I've personally seen all year round where elk are talking. So there is an opportunity for you to sit there and listen to how they respond to each other and all that kind of stuff. And then also see how they're responding to your calls as well. So that is a very unique experience. I think that a lot of people will gain a bunch of knowledge on as well.
I'm looking at the lodge and it looks gorgeous. We have I don't know if you know Mia Anstein, who's involved
I already
in SE.
talked to Mia.
Oh, cool. So you have her roped in because she lives in that region and she always tells me how beautiful it is. So I'm just looking at the resort and I'm like, oh my gosh, all of Colorado is beautiful, but this region is very undervalued and underappreciated.
Yeah.
So it looks like your participants will be in for a treat. And I've never heard of an elk farm. I've heard of deer farms, but I've never heard of an elk farm, and especially out west.
Yeah. Yeah. They're pretty neat. And actually, I have a lot of friends. Some of the best elk callers in the field that I know, well, actually, in competition, they actually go and spend time close to these elk farm and listen and watch them interact with each other so that they learn their behaviors. So, like I said, I think it's going to be an extremely, extremely valuable experience for people. So, just from the hunting, just an outdoor aspect, not to mention the good pick me up, just being in the outdoors in such a beautiful place.
Right. And okay, so they offer like guided hunts. That's what I'm looking at on their website. So that's really cool too. So
Yeah,
people don't think it's
not
like
hunting their own elk.
No.
Yeah, but they're not hunting the
Private
elk on
elk
the
hunting.
elk farm. But yeah, it's several thousand acres. The property that they have is like several thousand acres. So they have wild elk that come in and out of the property and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they do all kinds of guided hunts and stuff.
Okay, because some people might be listening and be like, what? They're raising them? Like high fence
Yeah.
hunting? And I have no
No, it's
objections
not
to
high
high fence
fence.
hunting. I have no objections to it when it's done well. In eastern states, that's kind of what they do. In Texas, I've seen it. It actually works pretty well. And they're restoring a lot of like African species, which are then being shipped back to Africa. Interestingly enough, but I have seen elk in high fence settings in Texas, in some ranches a little outside San Antonio. And I think I saw a couple others. I saw zebras too when I was close to Carrizo Springs, which is kind of close to the border, but away from where all the migration is happening. But on the other side, the more impenetrable part of the border area in Texas. So it can be done, be tasteful. But for clarity, I don't think this Colorado farm is high fence hunting, just so everyone's clear.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Farming,
it's not
yeah.
high fenced. It's just
So private
it just so
elk hunting.
happens
Okay.
that they do have an elk herd that is in a high fenced area it's actually
okay.
farmed elk, and then they have
Oh, okay. So they have that and the wild. Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Fascinating. No, I think it's a legal operation, so of course it can be done
Oh, for
well.
sure.
And no CWD spread, because I know a lot of people say that, well, these private operations or what is contributing to CWD, there's a lot of debate over that. So I don't think every facility should be held, responsible for CWD. I have no doubt they probably check and monitor very, very actively to ensure not.
Yeah, there's a lot of regulation that happens in these different high fenced outfits, or even just the farms themselves, because there are deer farms and elk farms, where they're selling the meat commercially. And there is a huge amount of regulation that happens, like when one of the animals is killed for slaughter. They have to send the head off to get tested and everything like that, make sure it doesn't have CWD. And, there's a lot of different regulation that happens with that.
If listeners are interested in attending the Big Game Academy, where would you like to send them to, Aaron?
Yeah, if you're interested, write down this number. It's 970-422-8261. And call and tell them that you want to register for the Big Game Academy. And that's pretty much it.
And where can people follow you if they think going through you is going to be more effective too?
So there's a couple people that I would say to follow. So you can follow me at Perimeter Republic Podcast. But the Guide 970, that's my buddy Josh, who's involved in this as well. And then the Colorado Gunfighter Academy. Those are the two other guys that I'm in part with on this.
Fantastic. I will be sure to include all the details. I wish I could attend, but my schedule, like I said, is very busy and crazy, but I wish you luck. I can't wait to see the results, and you'll have to keep me posted on how it all goes. I appreciate you coming back on, Aaron, because this is a cool project, and I'm excited for what's going to happen with it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. Really, really looking forward to having you next year, and maybe more of the members of POMA and stuff like that. That would be really cool as well.
We will certainly try to plan on it. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this installment of District of Conservation, I would love to know your feedback. Send it my way. Please be sure to leave us reviews on Apple, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are played, and also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to never miss a beat nor a guest announcement. Thanks so much for listening to District of Conservation. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please share the podcast to those who may be interested in learning more about these critical natural resources, environment, energy issues.